So yes, I'll start by sharing the screen. There we go. So as we do, we'll start all our collective worship. We start always with the lighting of the 3 candles. So we light these candles in the name of God the Father, God the Son, and God the Holy Spirit. So that's right. So we were thinking, as I mentioned earlier, we're talking about respect this week as being part of our collective worship, and respect being one of our St. Andrew's values, and more importantly, how we treat other people. And we're going to be thinking that as part of our theme through the week, but also really something that actually, whether it be a value of St. Andrew's, whether it be a value of the Church of England or whatever, respect is really important value to have anyway. Just as being a decent human being, respect for one another is really, really important. And that's why it's good to focus on this. So we're going to be thinking about how we treat other people with respect. So with that in mind, I wonder if anyone can explain to me what it means to treat somebody with respect. So I'm going to sort of throw it out to you in your classrooms to think about, can you explain what it means to treat someone with respect? So if I was to go to, let's go to, Mrs. Davies, if you're there, does anyone in your class can answer that question? What does it mean to treat someone with respect?
Yes, Caitlin.
Oh, brilliant.
Do you want to come over here, Caitlin?
Respect means when you can trust people.
Yeah. Excellent. So we'll keep going. Yeah.
You can give them.
What are you thinking? Somebody else want to add to that? Do you want to add to that? Yep. Yep.
So it's having trust in somebody or providing trust. Yeah.
Oh, is it Kira? Eva. And Eva, can you add to that?
Where someone's being kind.
Kind, yeah. So trust and kindness, those sorts of things. Just wonder if anyone from maybe 4S has anything else to add to that. Sorry to put you on the spot, 4S.
Yes, that's all right. Neela's coming.
Okay. Have you forgotten?
To be kind, she said.
Yeah.
Be nice.
To be kind and to be nice.
Yeah. Okay, great. Well, thank you for those things. And I thank you for sharing those ideas. And actually, it's a lot of things there that we've talked about. The fact of trust, the fact of being kind, the fact of being nice, and the fact that I asked you and you came up and did it and provided some information, and the fact that I said thank you afterwards are all signs that somebody is showing somebody respect. The fact that you came up and stood in front of your friends and did that shows that you respect me because I asked you and you did something that I'd asked you to do. I said thank you as a show and a mark of respect. But it goes deeper than that with this idea that we're being kind to others and also making them feel worthwhile with the things that we do. So it's really important that throughout our life, whether we are wherever we are, that we show this idea of respect to those people. And sometimes it's easy to forget how to show and how to treat people with respect. So, I want you to think about the fact, do you think that people treat others with respect in this school? Do you think that people treat others with respect in your family? And do you think people treat each other with respect, whether that's on the television or on YouTube or on gaming when you're gaming or anything like that? And I'm afraid to say, sadly, we don't always see people treating with others with respect. However, it's really important that we keep that in the forefront of our mind, that we always keep this idea, am I being respectful, in the forefront of your mind. And I know that, with regards to Christians, and it being a Christian value, that there are several stories in the Bible that Christians believe highlight how much God values showing respect for others. And it's quite an important one. So I'm going to talk to you about a story that comes from the Old Testament, the Old Testament part of the Bible, and it includes 3 characters. So the story is called Elijah and the Widow. And first of all, you've got an old man called Elijah, and he is somebody called a prophet. And this means that it's someone who heard God speaking to him and then went around telling people what he'd said. You also have a poor widow who worshipped different things to Elijah. So she worshipped different types of things, so not God and things like that. And because she was poor and because she worshipped different things, this would have meant that she was a bit of an outsider in her community, that people really wouldn't want to talk to her or go near her or support her. And in most parts, she would be ignored. And then there's the widow's son, which is here. And he actually was just plain hungry. So that's what the story involves. So if I tell you the story of Elijah and the widow. Now, it hadn't rained for ages, and Elijah started to feel hungry and thirsty. Now, because it had been raining for ages, basically the crops hadn't done what they had meant to do, and the flooding and everything had meant that the crops were ruined, and the water was contaminated. So lots and lots of people were starving and thirsty, including Elijah. Don't worry, said God. Go to a town called Zarephath, and there's a widow there, and I've told her to give you some food. Now, at this point, it's quite interesting that a God that she doesn't follow or believe in actually had already spoken to someone that people didn't really have any time for, and particularly one that didn't believe in him. So, just as God asked, Elijah went to the town. And when he arrived, he saw a widow gathering sticks and making for a fire. Excuse me, he said, please could you bring me a drink of water and a piece of bread too? Well, the woman turned around and said, well, I'm sorry, but I don't have any bread. All I've got is a handful of flour and a little oil in this jug. I'm picking up these sticks to make a fire, and then I'll make some bread with the flour and the oil so that my son and I can have one final meal before we die, because they were going to starve. Now, at this point, Elijah didn't even think that actually somebody so poor with hardly anything would have been the wrong person. Maybe he was thinking he should go there and there'd be somebody with loads of stuff, but actually he didn't think, oh dear, I got this one wrong. He just turned around to her and said, don't be afraid. Go home, make some bread, and then bring me a piece, but keep some for yourself and your son. God has promised that the flour that you will use and the oil that you have will not run dry until the day that he sends the rain upon the land. So the idea is it will keep going until the crops became good again. So a very strange man walked up to this woman and said, give me some food and drink. Don't worry about it. God's going to make sure that this never runs out. How do you think the widow would have felt when she heard Elijah's words? Just spend a moment thinking about that. How do you think that she would have felt when she heard him come in there? Well, I'm sure she may have thought, can I trust this man's words? Will the flour and oil really last that long? She might have thought, well, do you know what? This is all I've got. And if that's that, then I'll do it anyway because I've got nothing to lose. She might have also thought, well, why is God choosing me, a poor widow, to provide food for Elijah the prophet? Now, obviously, we don't really know what she thought, but she could have been thinking any of these sorts of things. So when the widow heard Elijah's words, she returned to her house and made the bread and gave some to Elijah. Then the widow made some more bread, and then some more bread, and then some more bread. And as Elijah promised, the oil and the flour did not run out until the crops had returned and they could still eat and the famine was over. So it all came good. It was right. It was true. So at the start of the story, Elijah was hungry and he had an unusual message from God. The widow was worried about the last meal that her son and her son was going to have, and the son was just pretty hungry and worried that he was worried too, that he might not get another meal. So that's how they felt at the start of the story. I wonder how the characters would have felt at the end of the story. Now, one of the things that he could have done is Elijah could have learned a lot about trusting God. Trusting God, he said that was what would happen, and it did happen. The widow would be no longer fearful and has learned that even if other people didn't respect her, didn't like her because of what she did or said, then God loved her anyway and had a plan for her. And the son is no longer hungry and realized that God has taken care of him and his mum. So they've learned lessons about showing respect. So with that in mind, even if the people around the woman, even if the people around the women in today's story didn't really respect her, particularly and see her as particularly valuable because she was poor, she was a widow, she had had no food or drink. God saw that there was something important in her and had a special job for him. So Elijah and the widow treated each other with dignity and respect. It didn't matter that they both had different beliefs. It didn't matter that they both came from different places. They both listened to each other and treated each other with dignity and respect. Because Elijah could have seen the woman to begin with and thought, well, it can't possibly be her because she's poor and starving. I want someone who's going to have lots of money and be able to feed me. They didn't do that, and she could have seen him and think, well, why would he have anything to do with me? Because he's a prophet for God, and why would he come and speak to me? But what happened is they both listened to God, and more importantly, they listened to each other. So when we think about that, we need to take a time for reflection, really. And one of the things that we think about when it takes time for reflection is we need to treat everybody that we meet with respect, even the people that are undervalued. So sometimes, whether you are in the manor in the school, we have lots of different adults that look after you. So we have teachers, we have support staff like the TAs, we have the lunch staff, we have the people that look after the grounds, like Mr. Panther, and clean the school, like Mrs. Ray. They all come in and they do those jobs, and their job is here to help you and make the school a good place for you to be. And we need to make sure that we treat everybody with respect. And maybe if you're in year 5 and you may not think that somebody in year 3 or 4 is below you because they're younger than you, that you should treat them differently, but that's not true. And when you go up to secondary school, the year 6s, you're going to come across children from years 8, 9, 10, 11, or whatever, and then they're going to be different to you as well. But it's really important that we treat everybody that we come into contact with respect. And remember that if you do treat them with respect, they are more likely to treat you with respect as well. So that's quite an important thing to remember. And obviously remind ourselves that God thinks that every one of us is a unique person and is infinite value to them or to him, which is quite an important one. So what I want you to do is take a moment to sit quietly for a second. And whilst you're sat quietly for a second, I want you to think about whether you think you treat other people with respect. If you do, what are the things you do to show that you do? How do you show respect for these other people? And if you're thinking maybe it's something I need to work on, what is it you need to work on? How can you be better? How can you be more respectful? Okay, so whilst you're sat there reflecting for a moment and you're having a moment of stillness, if you'd like to place your hands together and close your eyes, and we're finished with a prayer. Dear God, thank you that you value each one of us. Please help us to treat others with respect. Help us to embrace differences between us. Help us to love others, even if they are very different from us. Help us to see the value in each individual person. Amen. Right, so I'll stop sharing for a second. So yeah, so that's our collective worship for today. Thank you for listening, and sorry for the bit of a delay starting. Hopefully I get this technical problem sorted for tomorrow. Thank you very much. We'll be back again tomorrow. We'll be thinking a bit more about respect, and more importantly, thinking about mutual respect. So we'll be talking about that a bit further. So thank you very much for listening. Take care and enjoy the rest of your afternoon. Bye, everyone.